girl who gave it to him would haunt his dreams for years to come, her shy smile the last thing he thought about each night before drifting off to sleep. Which is why he had every intention of looking her up. It was time to put the ghosts of the past to rest. But first things first. Priority one had to be getting settled at the station and in his apartment. 26 years of living like a rolling stone had taught him to live sparsely. There hadn't been much to bring from Boston, and if he planned to make a life for himself in New York, something permanent, he was going to need some essentials, like an actual bed, and maybe some dishes, a real couch, the basics. The prospect sent his blood pressure soaring. Shopping scared him more than a 5-alarm blaze, but if that was the price of stability, he'd gladly pay it. After, well, that was a different story, wasn't it? He'd moved back to the city for the job, but that didn't mean he couldn't see about a girl, and he knew just the one. He and Frankie had unfinished business.
Becca Mancini watched silently as Jax and his buddies celebrated, fist-bumping one another and having a grand old boys' night out. When they had first jostled their way up to Stout's 75-foot bar, she hadn't paid much attention. After all, a bunch of Hulk-sized hockey fans were nothing to get excited about. No, what grabbed her attention was a familiar face. One she hadn't seen in damn near 10 years. One she never expected to see again, never wanted to see again. Oh, he had grown up and filled out, but it was him all right. She'd know those baby blues anywhere. Couldn't forget them if she tried. After all, how many nights had she cried herself to sleep thinking about them? Jackson freaking Hart. One of the guys slapped him on the back and handed him a beer. Figured. He was as popular with the men as he'd been with the ladies growing up. Not that she was surprised. He'd always had a certain charisma and that stupid heart charm that drew people to him, her included. As a kid, she'd fallen for him, hook, line, and sinker. Stupid, stupid, stupid. She'd been so naive to think he'd ever be interested in her. That naivete had come back to bite her in the ass when he stood her up on their first date. Talk about a wrecking ball. Her self-esteem had gone right to shit. But that was then, and this was now. Guys like him hit on her all the time. Not that they ever made it past 3 dates. Yeah, she knew his type as surely as she knew her own name. The familiar heat simmered in her belly, bubbling up from her gut with 1,000 emotions she thought were long extinguished. Would he even remember her if she went over there? Probably not. She'd grown up and filled out too. There was nothing left of the scrawny kid she'd been. Gone were the knobby knees and the ridiculous crimped hair. She cringed at the memory, taking a sip of her beer in a failed attempt to dull the ache in her chest. Do not start feeling sorry for yourself. You're not that girl anymore. New hair, new clothes, new attitude. Besides, her brother Christopher was still playing the field at the age of 26. Jax was probably no different. Odds were good he was the same self-centered douchebag who stood her up on her very first date. And that just wouldn't do. It was time Jackson Hart got a dose of his own medicine. "You still with me?" Quinn asked, twisting in her seat, trying to see who or what Becca was staring at. Her eyes narrowed and Becca could practically see the investigative wheels turning. An up-and-coming journalist, Quinn was too observant for her own good sometimes. Or did you see someone more to your liking? Hardly. Becca tore her gaze from Jax and raised a shoulder nonchalantly. Doing her best to downplay her interest, she scanned the last of the happy hour crowd, noting the bar's cobblestone floor had disappeared under the crush of bodies pouring in from the garden. Really? Quinn challenged, a sly grin spreading across her face. Because it sure looks like you were eye-fucking those Ranger fans over there. Want me to go over with you? There are plenty to go around. It's not like that, Becca reiterated, fighting to keep the defensive tone from her voice. The last thing she needed was for Quinn to march over there and blow her plan. She glanced at Quinn's stilettos.